Welcome to The Secret Life of Mothers. My name is Maggie Gordon-Walker and I'm the founder of Mothers Uncovered. Join us as we explore and share the incredible hidden stories of mothers when life has thrown at them challenge. Discover how the skills we learn in matrescence, which means becoming a mother, can teach us about more than motherhood. They teach us about unconditional love, resilience and acceptance. I'm joined today by Alex Bollen. Alex is a researcher, writer and postnatal practitioner. She was previously a director at the research agency Ipsos MORI and is now self-employed. She qualified as a postnatal practitioner with the NCT and has been running groups for new mothers for more than a decade. Her book, Motherdom, Breaking Free from Bad Science and Good Mother Myths, was published by Verso in 2025. The Washington Post described motherdom as a thorough investigation into the intense pressures mothers face, and the New Yorker praised the book for being irascible and informative. I love that, irascible, yes, quite. Alex, welcome to The Secret Life of Mothers.
Hi, Maggie. Thank you. Great to be talking to you today.
Ah, yes. Today, this is being recorded if you're watching it in a future time on a very hot day in the UK at the end of June. So Alex and I both have our fans on in the background to keep our lady parts cool. So let's start by asking Alex, where in this very hot at the moment country are you based? And is this the same area as you grew up?
Right now, I'm in South London, where I have been for the last 2 decades. But I'm definitely not a Londoner. I'm from the West Country originally, and I guess the place I would really call home is lovely Bath.
Ah, I don't hear any hint of an accent. Is that just sort of slithered away over the
It's
years?
slithered away over the years. Yeah, sadly, I've just got that really sort of general kind of, yeah, kind of could come from anywhere accent.
Yes, yes, indeed. Um, so okay, you grew up in Bath. Was that nice? Did you like Bath?
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. I've still got actually lots of my friends who sort of moved to London have all sort of moved back. So yeah, I've still got lots of friends there, which is great. So always a good excuse to go back and see them.
Definitely, definitely. So, what would we need to know about you to understand how you would describe yourself as a mother?
It's such a good question, and I think it says a lot about kind of what motherhood is. And I think for me as a mother, mother is all the different parts of me. So as you're mentioning, I'm a researcher, so I like to look into things, investigate, understand the evidence. That's part of my character. But another part of my character is quite kind of a bit disorganized and a bit kind of chaotic. I try and keep that under check so I can be an effective human being. But that's definitely part of my mothering as well. And I think one of the things which I've learned over the years as a researcher, which I definitely bring to my mothering, is how different we all are and how we can be different in different circumstances and how that's okay. So
Mm.
I very much feel as a mother that there are no sort of perfect answers, and I definitely don't have them. I try and do the best I can and very often fall short, but that's okay.
I think it is okay, and I think what's changed in the last couple of generations is letting your kids know that you don't know all the answers, and if you've lost your rag at them, apologizing. Because certainly I don't remember my parents ever apologizing if they were ratty. And I think it's a really good thing. I think children really appreciate that. They see that everyone makes mistakes. And as long as you acknowledge them,
Yeah.
they go, that doesn't depend what the mistake is, but it goes a long way to making it better. Um, so your mother was a health visitor. Is your mother still around or not? Not
She's
anymore.
not, sadly, no. I
No.
lost her. It's coming, well, it'll be next month. It'll be 10 years, but it still feels like yesterday.
So she was a health visitor. So was that something she did all her life? Was that something she came to later on, or?
She so my mum was born in 1944 and really interesting, kind of classic boomer parent in the sense of She grew up in a small market town. She didn't go to university, which was the case for most people in those days. But age 17, she decided to escape from Shropshire and went to Bristol, where she trained as a nurse. And I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I think, blimey, that was really brave of her to go and do that. Um, so she trained as a nurse aged 17 and
Mm.
was a nurse for a few years and then trained as a decided to train as a health visitor because her passion really was sort of, yeah, new families, babies.
Mm. So you said to me that you have memories of going with her on visits, which I'm sure health and safety you wouldn't be allowed to go
Would
now.
not be allowed
But
at
then in
all.
what this was like 70s, early 80s,
Yeah,
whatever you were.
this was in the 1970s, yeah. And so she worked in an area called Yate in South Gloucestershire, which is quite a deprived part of the country, it still is. And yes, I just must have been in the school holidays, but I remember being there, on sort of house visits and also in the baby clinic where she'd be sort of weighing babies. And I think that's where my sort of interest in postnatal work began, as a child, seeing my mum doing that work and seeing her being kind of lovely and reassuring and kind and all of those things which I think, new mothers need.
Mm. So, where are you in your family, as in the pecking order? Are you the youngest, oldest? Is it just
I'm the
you?
oldest. Yeah, I'm very much the big sister.
Okay.
Big bossy
So
sister.
yeah, you went with her because you were the only ch child at the time, but maybe
Yeah.
in subsequent, were you then perhaps
Yeah.
at school, or you didn't all
Yeah.
go as a troop with your mother,
No, well,
or
I
you don't
don't remember.
remember that?
I don't remember. I've got actually my younger brother is only 18 months younger than me, which was quite normal back in the 70s. I mean, I
Mm,
know people still have quite short birth orders, but short gaps between births, but I think it was much more common then.
yeah.
Um, so I don't know if my brother was there or not. I don't know where my brother was. Maybe he was not interested in going into work.
Yes.
Mum and I was. I don't know.
Well, that I mean, that is, those sort of stereotypes which are now thankfully breaking down. It's just like, oh no, well,
Mm,
this isn't a place for a boy to be. It's for
mm,
girls.
mm.
But you enjoyed those. Are there any particular memories you have of it, or is it just a kind of general haze of you remember
Yeah,
being
just
there?
yeah, just I don't know. And I remember on the back of her car, she always had Sheila Kitchinger books. So she had Breast is Best, which was one of Kitchinger's books, something about
Mhm.
baby sleeping. And so I feel like I definitely kind of I've imbibed messages around sort of breastfeeding because of those experiences. But I
Mm,
just remember being really proud of having a mum who worked because it was definitely less common in the 1970s. And she was a really good role model because it was kind of like, no, you go out and you work and you do interesting work and you do something which is hopefully meaningful and which hopefully kind of helps other
mm,
people. So yeah, I
mm.
think those are my kind of overriding sort of emotions that I remember from that.
And yeah, quite an outlier at the time on the breast is best, because I mean that's kind of ebbed and flowed, the kind of, and the sort of idea of liberating in the same way that the pill liberated women, having formula liberated you so you could go out. And
Yeah.
certainly my mother had trouble breastfeeding. She was very quickly discouraged,
Yeah.
and told just to go to formula, where she would have wanted, I think, to
Yeah.
try, but there wasn't the support. So yeah,
Yeah.
good on your mum for that. But I'm sure she was supportive if someone didn't want to or wasn't able to as well. But it's good that she was doing that positivity for it. So did you discuss being a mum with your mum when your children were growing up? So she was around till what, your oldest was about 7?
Yeah. So my oldest was 10 and my
10,
youngest was 6 when she died.
6.
So yeah, we really did. And it's quite interesting. And I sort of heard this a lot in my postnatal work as well. You don't really think about your mother as a mum. I
No.
certainly didn't. I know it's true of other women as well. Until you become a mother yourself, you just sort of
Mhm.
take all this maternal labor and love for granted, assuming
Yeah.
that you've got a loving mother. I know that isn't true for everyone. And so when I had my first child, I was like, oh, wow, this is really quite hard. And it's a lot of work. I don't know what I'm doing, but mum managed to do this. And so
Yeah.
you can look at your mother in a completely different light, I think, when you've had a child. And I certainly did. And we talked a lot. My mother, she was a great one for talking, and she was fascinated by human beings and human relationships. And she was a very supportive mum. She always thought that me and my brother were were the best and the most wonderful children. We were very, very lucky. We sort of bathed in love as we grew up. So obviously when I became a mother, she thought her grandchildren were the best, grandchildren that had ever been, and that I was a wonderful mother. So she was very, very supportive. But we did also have um really interesting chats around sort of love and duty and what mothering means, what good mothering looks like, good mothering looked like when I became a mother, what it looked like in the 1970s. So she was a really good person to talk to about all of those things. And she
Mm.
was absolutely, I said earlier, there's no easy answer. My mum was a really not a kind of there are easy answers type person. She was very thoughtful. And because she was a health visitor, she had that sort of training in child development. So she probably was a bit more, I don't want to say progressive, but I think she had a sort of greater understanding possibly of children and
Mm.
the importance of listening to your child, which wasn't always the case in the 1970s. And so kind of we took that, that was our relationship throughout. And certainly when I became a mum. I think the only thing we kind of slightly struggled with at the start was she tried to be a health visitor, not my mum.
I was going to say that, you in some ways you think, oh, brilliant. It's like having, being married to any kind of useful tradesperson. You think, brilliant, they're right there, but actually it can be awkward.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
remember saying to her, I said, Mum, I don't want you to be my health visitor. I want you to be my mum.
yeah.
And she was like, okay, and took that on board. I think by the time I had my kids, my mum hadn't been a health visitor for a good few years. And you know what it's like with sort of baby advice just changes so much. And so one of mine was colicky.
Mm.
And she's like, I'm sure there's something you can give them for that. We used to prescribe this thing, and I looked it up, and it was like practically baby poison. I said, Mum, I'm not giving my baby that. She's like, oh,
Yeah, and I was talking to someone the other day about the position of baby lying on its back, on its front. So
Mm.
were you laid on your front? I mean, that was still prevalent in the 70s, or
Yeah, it was. It was. I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't
yeah. Well, I
know.
was talking to someone about tummy time, and they're kind of like,
Yeah. Oh,
the kind
I
of
had.
that thing, because children
Yeah,
really, babies, would you like being, if your hands were tied behind your back, which is what it's like for a baby, you can't lift
yeah,
and put on your, it
yeah,
feels like torture. But
yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
have
funny, isn't it?
huge beef with tummy time actually because I see the pressure it puts on, or particularly mothers today. I mean, I've had, mothers of,
Yeah.
babies a few days old saying, "Should I be doing tummy time?" And it's like, no.
No, and
Um,
it's one of those sort of cutesy phrases like baby blues, oh, tummy time, making it sound like story time.
yeah,
It's something, oh, this is just a nice thing to do, but actually,
yeah.
it may not suit.
Yeah, yeah. And I think,
Really.
and I think, I mean, for me, tummy time is such a good example of the ways in which we make mothering harder than it needs to be.
Mm.
Because there are lots of ways in which babies get tummy time, like if they're sort of lying on your lap or, holding them sort of laying back. Um, but we don't call that tummy time because tummy time is supposed to be this kind of cutesy thing that we do sort of consciously. And as
Mm.
you say, like, you face planting a baby, they're going, rah. Um, and so it puts mothers in this awful bind. It's like if the good mother is supposed to give their baby tummy time, but the good mother also shouldn't be doing something which makes their baby cry. And and it's really one of those things that when babies are ready for tummy time, they're ready, and
Yeah.
that's fine, but don't rush it and just,
No.
you know, let it unfold
Did
in
you
its
say,
own
or
way.
is that in your book, or did you wrote something about
I
tummy
wrote a
time?
Substack piece about it. Yeah, it wasn't in my
Yes.
book. It was inspired by someone saying, "Oh, my partner's giving me a hard time because I'm not giving my baby tummy time." And I was like, "I'm going to go look at
Right.
the evidence behind that
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
at least 10 minutes of tummy time." And and I sort of unpicked it, and there's just no evidence behind that at all. And
yeah.
it's
Yes.
just anxiety inducing.
And did your Substack get a kind of response from people? Was it sort of strike a chord?
Yeah, I've definitely had some responses from people with older babies saying, older
Mm.
children, sorry, saying, I wish I'd known this. Because
Yeah.
tummy time has cut, I've done events in my book and it's almost always comes up with from, mothers of babies or toddlers. And it's really one of those things which it sounds really minor, but it's one of those things which just makes early motherhood like more miserable than it needs to be because people just feel
Mm.
guilty. And even if they
Mm.
manage to give their baby a few minutes of tummy time, the fact that it's at least 10 minutes. So even if you manage your 10 minutes, it's still not enough. And it's an
Mm.
example of how women are always going to be found to be falling short.
Yes, yes. It's like all those, milestones and babies should be doing this and
Yeah,
this by this point. It's just going to make you anxious because
yeah,
by and large, well, I think, unless there is some sort of developmental delay, all babies are going to learn to do all of the things when they are ready.
yeah,
I was
absolutely.
just thinking what you said earlier about with your, which I think is very common. You don't realize until you become a mother. Wow, my mum did this, and she was so amazing, and I'm not, and I don't remember her being anything other than amazing. But because, as well, certainly as children are naturally self-centered, aren't they? Because that's
Mm,
the sort of primeval survivors, like me, 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 me. It's only
mm,
later you realize there's other people. So I
yeah.
think that, again, that's a very common thing. You look why women get depressed as well, as they look around and think, oh, all these mothers are doing it so much better than me, and they've been doing it for centuries. And usually that's the response of a mother writes publicly or speaks publicly. You'll always get some nagging crone of either gender saying, oh, in my day we didn't have any of this, we just got on with it. And it's just like, yeah, it's not helpful.
Yeah, no, it really, really isn't.
It really isn't. So let's discuss your entry into motherhood. So you told me your first birth was very difficult, and led to you experiencing feeding issues. So do you want to talk us through what you want to share of your birth and the first few months?
Yeah, so my birth was just very, very long. It went on and on and on. And I very narrowly avoided having a cesarean. Um, but I did end up having a forceps labour, and I didn't sleep for 2 nights. And so I was just exhausted. And that was off the back of, weeks and weeks of pregnancy.
Mm.
And you go from I always say to my postnatal groups, in any other sphere of life, if you've been through that physical experience, you'd be like, right, you go and, go down now and rest for a few days. But instead, you're sort of plunged into the world of new motherhood. And you have this tiny
Mm.
creature that you have to look after and that you're responsible for keeping alive. And the weight of that responsibility, oh my goodness, I felt that. Um, and so I started off motherhood exhausted, feeling very physically battered. Uh, I guess feeling quite emotionally battered as well because I really wanted, a nice straightforward birth. It didn't end up like that. And I very quickly started experiencing feeding issues. I really wanted to breastfeed. I mean, I mentioned, the sort of Sheila Kitzinger book in the back of my
Mm.
mum's car. I had school friends who'd had children before me who, as it seemed to me, as a sort of non-mother, all seemed to be sort of breastfeeding without any problems at all. And then when I talked to them subsequently, they were like, no, no, it was really hard and actually really, really hard in the
Mm.
early days of getting it established, but I didn't know that. So
No,
I
they
just
probably didn't come out, did they, when it was hard? You didn't see them until they felt they were confident to be out and about having to feed.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons why feeding issues can come as such a shock to women because we don't,
Mm.
and just feeding in general, because I think it's not something which we really kind of allow in the public sphere.
Mm.
Um, so yes, lots of pain, very colicky baby. I just felt like I was failing at all of it. I just felt I was making a real mess of motherhood and just felt like a really bad mother. And I was like,
Mm.
why is this so hard? Why can't I do it? I can normally do things. I can normally figure things out. And all the
Yeah.
things and all the ways in which you sort of tackle problems in your pre-baby life just, well, for me anyway, just didn't seem to work with a baby who
Mm.
cried endlessly and who I couldn't seem to be able to soothe or feed.
How long did it take until those resolved, or did you decide it was too difficult for you to continue?
I think I got to about, I think when he was 3 months, that was a
Mm.
real turning point. I was diagnosed with thrush, and ended up having a whole sort of regime of sort of medication and creams and and so breastfeeding became less painful. He sort of grew out of the colic, which is the normal sort of course with infant crying. It tends to sort of level off. And I just remember thinking, oh, this is feeling easier. This is feeling better. I'm feeling,
Mm.
yeah, maybe I can do this after all. Um, so I think, yeah, when the feeding got easier, when he was less unsettled,
Mhm.
and I started getting more of a sense of him as a little person as well. I think that's one of the really,
Yeah.
really hard things about early motherhood. You don't necessarily get a sense, it just feels like this bundle of urgent needs. You don't necessarily get a sense that here's a little person. Well, I didn't.
Mm.
And I know from my postnatal work that once the baby starts smiling, that's such a turning point for people because it feels like you're not just pouring yourself into this baby and getting nothing back. It's like, okay. And a real pivotal moment for me, I think, I'm trying to remember how old he was. Maybe he was about 8 weeks, that kind of age. But I remember walking into a room and he caught sight of me and his face lit up. And I thought, oh, you do know who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you do appreciate me being around you. It was a
Yeah.
really lovely moment.
Oh, that's nice. Particularly, yeah, when you've been through difficulties, it's nice to think that because it can seem like it's a blank canvas, a new baby, and they're not, paying attention. I mean, that's why they look so cute. Otherwise, you'd not want them to stay around. Um, So you told me you became angry when you became a mother, and about the good mother myths, which obviously is in the title of your book. They set women
Mhm.
up to fail. So the tummy time came later, your research. So what
Mhm.
what experiences or evidence and myths kind of led to those discoveries?
Yeah, so well, I think when my son was about 6 weeks old and I was really struggling, and as I said, I'm a researcher, so I'm always looking into the evidence. I want to understand things, I want to read about things, I want to talk about things to try and figure them out. And I was trying to make sense of motherhood, trying to make sense of my baby. So I was kind of reading lots of books. And my husband went and bought me a book called Why Love Matters, which is a book by Sue Gerhardt, and it was all about how babies' brains develop.
Mhm.
And when I read it, I was at a very low ebb, and it talks about how things like even hostile looks can sort of damage a baby's brain. And I just felt like, oh my goodness me, I am not only is he crying all the time, not only is feeding not working out, but I'm probably also damaging his brain into the bargain as well, because I'm just sort of sitting here in tears, looking really miserable.
Mm.
Um, and I remember having horrible nightmares about his head having sort of gaping hole in it where his brain should be. It had a really, really
Oof.
negative impact on me. And I really felt like I was damaging him, failing him. Um, and as as I was saying, things got better, things got easier, and I was like, it's okay. But it really took me to a pretty dark place reading that book. And
Mm.
so I was kind of interested in the whole idea of sort of babies' brains, from reading, from the moment of reading that book. And so when I started, studying to be a postnatal practitioner, I was like, okay, I need to kind of, read more, learn more about baby development. Let's look into all this brain stuff. And I was just so shocked and also outraged to discover how little evidence there is behind all these claims which are made about having to build babies' brains and how you need to get the
Okay.
wiring right, and it's the baby's brain is like a house, and if it's got poor foundations, then it's going to have a negative impact on the baby. Um, and it's interesting, these kind of neuroscience narratives were developed, more than 20 years ago, coming up
Mm.
30 years, and they're still quite current, even though our understanding of the human brain has accelerated so much since then. And I just felt really furious about it. Like, hang on a sec,
Mm.
how can we be frightening people with this alarmist stuff? Um, and connected to all of that is lots of things around cortisol. And so if babies have too much cortisol, if their brains are flooded with cortisol, then that's going to have a really negative impact on them. And again, when I looked into that, I was like, where's the evidence for this? And how do we
Mm.
know how much cortisol is harmful? And when I discovered that if you don't have any cortisol at all, you'll die, I was like, oh, okay. That made me really cross as well. It's like, well, we need to have cortisol to kind of, get up in the morning
Yeah.
yeah, deal with life. So they that that they those laws which really affected me. I think. more broadly and sort of related to breastfeeding, this idea that motherhood's natural, that you should know what you're supposed to do. I really believed that. And
Mm.
then I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And when I realized, hang on a sec, why should I be expected to know how to do something I've never done before? That also made
Mm.
me really angry.
Yes. And again, I think there's a lot of anxiety of being over this. Oh, you'll fall in love with your baby, and
Mm,
you're just sitting there, "Oh, don't," because as you say, until the point when they do recognize you for the first time, there's usually nothing coming from them. It's just like, why?
yeah.
You don't think that about other people in your life. I mean, maybe, when you fall in love, there's that, oh, love at first sight, but actually that's, probably
Mm,
not very sustainable. And actually, when you meet somebody new, it takes a while
yeah.
for them to embed themselves in your life. So why should your baby be any different?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes,
Absolutely. And I
you
think
do.
there are these sort of
Mm,
cultural imperatives about how we should feel. So we should
yeah.
fall in love with our babies from the moment we clap our eyes on them. And some people do and some people don't. There's so much variation, I think, in how
Yeah.
we respond to different parts of motherhood. And I think those are the most damaging good mother myths, I think, that we should be, joyously happy every moment with our baby. It's like, well, actually, some bits of it are lovely and some bits of it are really hard, and some bits of it are
Mm,
fun and some bits of it are boring. And some people actually really hate the baby days but love it when they're toddlers, and vice versa. And this, motherhood is complicated.
mm,
Child rearing is complicated. There are lots of different emotions, lots of different experiences. It's very textured, it's very rich.
yeah.
It's very complicated. Why should we just have this kind of joy, throughout?
Yeah. No, it is. So you have your background in research, so you were exploring that, and that kind of led to you writing Motherdom. Was that something? Did you imagine one day you'd be writing a book, or did it just sort of start growing in you? This
Yeah.
need to get it out there.
Well, I think right from when I was a little girl, I always wanted to write a book. It was just one of those sort of childhood ambitions. And I just thought one day I'll write a book. Um, and never seemed to, would sort of start thinking about potential ideas, but never would seem to have the time or something I really, really wanted to write about. With
Mm,
this one, I started thinking about it around the time I started my training, and I just thought I want to write the book that I would have liked to have read when I became a
mhm.
mother. And I did read some really good books, I should say, like Naomi Stadlin's What Mothers Do was
Yeah.
just so, and I know lots of people talked about that book, but that was so validating and supportive, that book. But I thought,
No, really, for me too. That's what led to Mothers Uncovered starting, really, is because I
yeah,
thought that was, I wanted to create something that was in that vein.
yeah, 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 which is wonderful. And I think, yeah, it inspired me to train as a postnatal
Mm,
practitioner as well. Um, but I wanted to write something a bit more practical. I wanted to write about, oh, there's all these different schools of thought about baby sleep, and
mm,
here's some ways of coping with baby crying. Um, and I thought I should also write about all the cultural pressures. I need to write some things about how these brain claims are just really flimsy. And so the book kind of evolved from a sort of like manual around the first year of life to a much more kind of cultural polemic book about the pressures that mothers are put under.
mm,
Um, and so all the material that I had around sort of crying and sleeping, I just ditched that because I thought actually this book is relevant, however old your children are. It's not just for new
mm,
mothers, even though that's where my experience is. Um, and so it became a sort of broader book around debunking the science, um, exploring this whole issue of motherhood being natural and how damaging that is,
mm,
and also exploring the kind of context in which women are supposed to mother and the way in which women are blamed for things which aren't our fault. Um,
mm,
so kind of structural issues like poverty, you cannot expect women to solve poverty and give their children a sort of better chance in life because they breastfeed them or they interact with them in a certain way.
mm. How long did the book take to write?
A long time. I think over a decade. But I
Really?
was, bringing up two kids. I was
Yeah.
working as a self-employed person, so I'd have months where I wouldn't do anything on the book, and then I'd
Mm,
pick it up again. So, yeah, it took a long time to write. Partly because I did a lot of research and a lot of reading
mm,
as well. but I'm kind of quite grateful because the last chapter of the book where I talk about my vision of motherhood, I think I would have written a very different chapter if my children
Yes.
had been younger. I think, I mean, I finished that chapter off when my kids were 15 and 18, and I think that just gives you a different perspective from if they're 5 and 8, for instance, or if they're, 1 and 4, because,
Yeah.
one was an adult, one was almost an adult. And so I had, yeah, quite a different perspective on it than if I'd done
Mm.
that,
Exactly. I mean, yeah,
earlier.
it's a true kind of conclude, an epilogue, a proper conclusion, because
Mm.
you've had all of that time to ruminate and
Yeah.
come to those particular thoughts.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I was also able to say to them, "Oh, kids, tell me about all the times I've been a bad mother." I was really because I wanted to put that in. And then I talked to them both separately, and I was like, I'm really interested in what they're going to say. And I was like, hit me with it. I want to hear it all.
Yeah,
Um, and my husband was like, "Oh, there was that time you nearly left on the bus." I was like, "No, no, no, I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from them."
yeah.
Um, but both children said in sort of slightly different ways, but they basically said the same thing: was I wish you'd given us more freedom. And I was just
Ah,
like, oh
interesting.
wow, because I feel like I probably did give my kids a fair amount of freedom and
Yeah,
in terms of the parental spectrum, I definitely think I was sort of somewhere in the messy middle rather than,
yeah.
you know. And so that was really, really super interesting for me. And
Did they articulate more on that, or did they each sort of have different things? No, just in because it's quite a large
yeah,
statement, isn't it? I mean, freedom what
yeah.
to be out and about at night, or
I
see
think,
whoever they wanted to see, or
yeah,
who knows?
I don't think it was that. I think it's more sort of freedom to get on with stuff in our own way.
Okay.
And I don't feel like I was a particular sort of helicopter parent, but I just thought, oh, that's really
Mm.
interesting. Because I don't feel like I'm a parent who did give my kids a sort of fair amount of agency. But yeah. Um, and it makes me interested if they do have children. I don't know if they will. I mean, the trend data says they probably won't. But what will they take into their parenting as they reflect on their own
Mm.
experiences of being parented?
Yes. And possibly that if their children then have children, they'd say, "Oh, you didn't give me freedom."
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's just so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, do they get on well,
They
your
do,
children?
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
nice.
most of the time. Yeah. I think because there's a 3 year age gap, there was definitely a point where that gap felt quite big.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's sort of narrowed back down again, which is lovely.
Mm. So with your book, was it easy to find a publisher? Is that something you had to work hard to achieve, or did it come quite naturally?
I was very lucky in that I got a wonderful agent. And so, she did the hard work
Mm,
with the publishers. I was so determined to get this book into the world, and I would have self-published it if I hadn't
mm,
got a publishing deal. So, but I know I was very, very lucky to find an agent, and it really is down to luck. Um,
mm.
because there's so many good books out there which, deserve to be on the shelves, and don't necessarily make it there. And she really believed in the book and helped me put together, a good proposal. And we got some really good interest. But it was interesting, publishing around motherhood. And I've heard other people say this.
Mm,
Publishers are a bit like, oh, we can't, or we've already got a
mm,
book sort of about motherhood coming out, so we can't have another one. It's even though it's one of the most sort of profound things you can do, and lots of people do it,
mm.
the market, there's a lot of caution around the market for motherhood books, I think, on the basis of my
Yes,
experience and other people's experiences that I've heard about.
yes. It's a niche issue, is what the prevailing wisdom is. This is like really,
Exactly, which is
literally,
outrageous.
all of life on this planet is a niche issue. Okay,
Yeah,
but
exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
It's a real example of how sort of mothers can get marginalized. It's like, yeah,
mm,
there, dears, pat, pat,
yeah,
you go back to making your organic purees and leave,
yes.
the real world to the grown-ups. And it's so patronizing and outrageous.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, also we're speaking today, when the Ockenden report has come out of what 2,500 families who came to speak to Donna Ockenden and her team about the maternity failing. So, occasionally it will come into the news if it's something like that. But, oh, this is awful. This is awful. Something must happen. we hope something will happen, but it doesn't sort of change the prevailing
Mm.
notion of what people think motherhood is. They break it down into specific things. All right, it's the birth that's the problem. All right, we'll fix that. Now everything, we don't need to do anything else on motherhood. It's just like, no, that's just the start of the journey. And
Yeah,
obviously you want it to be as good as it can be, otherwise that journey becomes a lot harder. But
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
there's a lot
absolutely.
of parts of it that need work.
Yeah. And the birth side of things is so depressing. I mean, I wrote
Mm.
about the first Ockenden report in my book, and before that, we had the Morecambe Bay report. I mean, we've been having
Mm.
reports about the shocking state of maternity services in England, for over a decade. And it's kind of like,
Yeah.
we know what the problems are. Please, can we just fix them rather than
Mm.
having more reports? I mean, I think the way Donna Ockenden does them is amazing in terms of really hearing the families
Yeah.
and putting them at the centre. And I think it's really important for people who've experienced shocking maternity care that those experiences are heard. Um, but I have some really fed up of the
Mm.
fact that we seem to have these endless reports and nothing
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah. And when, as you say, we don't need any more information. We have the information. Anyway, we keep on trucking. So we like on this podcast, I like to think about post-traumatic growth as opposed to stress. So you became an NCT postnatal practitioner, as you said, and you volunteer at a baby cafe for
Yeah.
new parents. So how has all your experiences of motherhood and doing these roles, how's that changed you and shaped your daily life?
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting to think about motherhood in terms of personal growth. And it's often growth that you don't necessarily expect. And it might well be growth that for reasons you didn't ever want. So,
Mm.
like a difficult birth experience, for instance, difficult breastfeeding, feeding experiences. I wanted to become a postnatal practitioner because I realized from my own experiences how important support is in early motherhood. And I have sort of learned through my work how important having a sort of safe, non-judgmental space is for people to be able to process the experience of becoming a mother. And we
Mhm.
have this wonderful word matrescence, which has, been around for a while, but has been popularized much more recently. And Maggie, I know in your work, you're one of the people who's really helped get that word more into the public domain. I mean, I think
Mm.
we still want to have, more awareness of it, but
Yeah.
it's a profound thing becoming a
Mm.
mother. And when I did my postnatal training, one of the modules was transition to motherhood, and it was looking at all the literature around that and looking at how you reconcile your maternal identity with your previous identity. And what's really hard, I think, in that sort of early postnatal period is how much loss there is. That
Mm.
was another of the sort of modules of my training, was looking at loss. Um, but there's also growth within that loss as well. So it's a profoundly difficult experience, I think, becoming a mother, as well as a profoundly enriching experience. And I think
Mm.
since I became a mother and the work I've done as a postnatal practitioner, volunteering at the baby cafe, as you said, writing my book, is trying to make sense of this experience for me personally,
Mm.
but also for women more generally, and trying to make sense of it in a sort of personal and emotional way, but also in a more kind of political and structural way as well. And looking at those, we've talked about some of the failings
Mm.
um, that new families experience.
Yeah. So, what else I want to ask you? So, your son was born in 2005.
Hmm.
So, if on the day before, if you were to write a letter to yourself with some advice, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. I would say do whatever it takes to get through this. I would say focus on all the things you are doing. Don't focus on all the things you think you're doing wrong. You are going to get things wrong, and that's okay. I would say take help if it's offered. It's a sign of strength, not a sign that you're not coping. And I think I'll
Yeah.
say you're going to be okay. It's going to feel hairy at times, but you're going to be okay. Hang on in there.
You wouldn't put in anything about give them more freedom. No, no,
No, I tell you what I would put in there. I would put in
no.
whatever you do, they will find things that they wish you'd done differently. And I think that is part of the richness of human relationships.
It really is. Yeah, you. I mean, because that's the thing, isn't it? Your parents are a certain way, and the way you are and parent is usually a reaction to that. And then if you have children, theirs will be a reaction to you. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I think cutting yourself some slack,
yeah,
owning up that you're not the perfect person, and
yeah.
just saying and trying to have a laugh, because I think that's the
Yes,
other thing with things like the tummy time and all of that. It just
yes,
becomes a
yes.
series of tasks. I wrote about that because we brought out a book called The Secret Life of Mothers. And certainly with my first, it was just like, I've got to do this now, and I've got to do this. And I wasn't enjoying any of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then with the second, because I had that confidence of thinking, well, this one's okay. It seems to be. So I could relax more into it and think, well, he's sleeping. So that means he goes to sleep later tonight. So what? He
yeah,
needs to sleep now.
yeah. I think that enjoyment point is such an important one, and actually, I would definitely include that in my letter on the 30th July 20, 2005. He's born on the 31st. Yeah, it's kind of don't take it all so seriously. Cut yourself some slack, just enjoy it. It people say, oh, it goes so fast, and it's actually a really annoying thing to be told when you have a baby. And I really have to bite my tongue and not say it to people, but it does go really fast. And what an exercise I sometimes do in group work is I say to people, you have a time machine, where would you go and why? And if I had a time machine, I would go back to when my kids were babies, so I could give them one another cuddle.
Yeah, and trust that all the other things you have to do in life will come when they need to come. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It's hard though. I mean, I had a very similar experience. I was in the supermarket, and there was a mother clearly a bit exhausted because her boy was chat, 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 chat. And I was thinking that obviously I didn't say it, because there's nothing more irritating than someone coming over, particularly an older mother, saying, oh, go so fast. These are the best years. It's like they may not be the best years. As we
yeah,
said, maybe there are for some. Maybe your best years are when your children are older, but you can't make a judgment based on that little snapshot you've seen of
no,
their life at all.
no, no, you really can't.
No. So, also on this, because I like to imagine it's like desert island discs, I like to ask my guests to think of a matrescence disc. So, something that they associate with motherhood. So, it's either you as a mother, or perhaps your own mother, or just a general association with any part of motherhood. So, what would you choose and why?
So this song came out just as my son was born, and I remember singing it to him. It's Coldplay, and it's called Fix You, and it talks about, tears streaming down your face. And at the time, there'd be sort of tears streaming down both our faces. Um, and I just remember singing along to it and holding on to him. There's a line in there about when you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need. And it seemed to really sum up how I was feeling. And then when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, which I think was how he was feeling. Um, but also it's got this lovely line about lights guiding you home. And I just remember just singing that and just thinking, it's going to be okay. I think it's going to be okay. And so that's my matrescence song, because it's that mix of all those different emotions of feeling really
Mm.
hopeless, but also feeling great love and this kind of sense that I think it's going to be okay.
I wonder if did they write that when one of them become a parent or not? It was just
I can
coincidence.
I kind of think I just remember thinking that must be about a child, that song. But I think, yeah, I think song lyrics can be interpreted in lots of different ways, and some of
Yes.
Coldplay's lyrics are quite strange. There's a line in the song about igniting your bones. It's like, yeah, I don't know quite what that means. But yeah,
Spontaneous combustion here.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But it definitely really kind of spoke to me at that time, and even now I hear it and I just kind of well up. I'm welling up just
Yeah.
thinking about it right now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is the beauty of music, is it does take you to other places for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
So, Alex, obviously there's your book. which can be purchased, I'm sure, online and in all good bookshops. Do you want to do a little
Absolutely.
plug for that? And also, if people want to contact you, is there Instagram or any other way they can do so?
Yes, I'm on Instagram, although I'm not massively active, but I love hearing from people. So yeah, very happy to hear from anyone. I'm at Alex Bollen. I'm also on Substack as well. My Substack's called Motherdom and More. And I have to say I haven't written a piece for a bit, but I want to start sort of cranking them up again and using some of the material actually I talked about, which was originally in my manuscript, which but didn't make the cut in the book. So
Mm.
looking around some of these issues um, around things like sleeping, but it's more about the sort again the cultural pressures and the sort of moralizing that there is around sort of early motherhood. So I want to write some pieces around that on Substack. But yeah, I love hearing from people, and I think what's been lovely about writing this book is people sort of getting in touch and saying that the book's really
Mm.
helped them, and yeah, that's been
Great.
wonderful.
Well, thank you for coming and speaking to me today, Alex.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Maggie. It's been lovely speaking to you. And yeah, we managed to not melt, which is great.
We did, and we are putting the world to rights with our respective work. We hope, along with obviously many other campaigners and researchers, journalists, etc., and mothers themselves speaking up. So here's to all of them.
Here's to all of them.
Okay.